Today is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Today we honor the work and witness of the great Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We have walked down the path of justice for eons. We have marched in the streets to make sure our voices were heard. As in any great movement, there are supporting people and gifts. The movement would have been a very different movement if it didn't have the support of great artists. Music and visual arts have been used for decades to support the work. We support our artists today as they share their experiences with us. The Reverend Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin will share her expertise in the movement, and the Reverend Fred Wise will share his gifts through another lens from the heart of an artist. We also welcome Bennett Kopp to worship today as he stood before the entirety of Decatur alongside Reverend Barbee to lift his voice about the injustices he sees even as a child. Let us worship God. Please join us for our call to worship. We are called to worship because we were created to worship God.
We are answering the call of Jesus to follow me.
Many ask the question of Dr. King, could anything good come out of Atlanta?
Many ask the question of Jesus, could anything good come out of Nazareth?
We know the answer is yes.
We know the answer is yes because Jesus was a change agent. Dr. King was a servant of Jesus.
Do you know me because you saw me, or do you know me because you believe?
Do we know Dr. King's work because we know of the intentional colonial practices since before slavery, or because we witnessed white people storm the Capitol last Wednesday?
We are called to worship because we know that Jesus lives.
We are called to worship because Jesus lives.
Let us worship God.
You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and laying down. You are familiar with all of my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me to lofty for me to attain. For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. How precious to me are your thoughts, God, how vast in the sum of them. Were I to count them, they were outnumbered the grains of sand. When I awake, I'm still with you.
Greetings, Oakhurst. I am the Reverend Dr. Lisa Allen McLaurin, and it is wonderful to be with you in virtual time. I'm sure most of you recognize the strains of the song I'm playing as We Shall Overcome, a song that was originally written as I Shall Overcome, but was adopted by the civil rights movement and other freedom movements as one of their anthems. And I'd like to talk to you a little while about the music of the civil rights movement, of the Black church, music that has sustained and kept a movement alive as we continue to fight for full rights even now in 2021.
In this first image, I was thinking about how Dr. King's legacy is honored in our seeking justice. And I included this quote that's always struck me from Amos. Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. I've depicted the moral arc of the universe, which he said, bending towards justice, and I've tried to embody it in a group of people holding signs. And these people represent people through a great period of time marching, because the moral arc doesn't bend simply because you wish it to or from some natural progress. The moral arc bends because we bend it. It is a moral arc, and not a natural one, but one that calls on us to find what is said to be the better angels of our nature.
The music of the civil rights movement did not become written or part of the movement just by happenstance. Most of the music came from music that had been written and composed during the time of Black codes, during the time of Reconstruction, during the time following emancipation, and even before then. The spirituals, Negro spirituals that were composed extemporaneously during the antebellum period, found their way, many of them, into the civil rights movement and the movement that preceded the civil rights movement of the 60s, movements of the 30s and 40s, and moved into the 50s and 60s and beyond. There are, in fact, protest movements today, including Black Lives Matter and others, that still use the music of our Black ancestors to bring hope, to inspire, to encourage those who are on the front lines fighting for freedom.
In this image, I've taken the quote about the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And I've tried to give that a more visual sense of writing the words out with a kind of bend, and then having a little bit of a change, a little bit of a syncopation, because the bending is always something that has a kind of give and take, a kind of rhythm to it. And also the verse, let justice roll like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. I tried to give that sense of a circular rolling to it. This is just a way to try and visually make it more universal.
One of the songs that would have come from the antebellum period would have been a song entitled "Oh Freedom," a spiritual composed by some ancestor who felt that there was nothing more to gain in this life by being part of a system that did not recognize, did not honor the humanity of Black people. And so that person sang out, "Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free." And so we see the development of Black music on these shores. We can hear in the different musical chants and scales that were being used that came from African shores. These scales and chants were the impetus for many songs before they were ever written on paper or became used in arrangements. They came from persons who felt the leading of the Spirit right in the moment and sang, "Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I'd be a slave, I'd be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free."
In the third image, I have a figure seen from the back, reaching a hand forward, saying, the quote, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice," with that sense of it having been spoken. In this way, the drawing is more illustrative of an actual moment in time. And all of our attempts at justice are indeed actual moments in time. And that's where we live, that's where we experience our frustrations, but also where we hope for our victories.
Our New Testament text today is John 1:43 through 51. John 1:43 through 51. Listen now for a word from the Lord. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming towards him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you come to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.
Other songs that came from the antebellum period that helped inspire those who were fighting on the front lines of the civil rights movement were songs like "Hold On." Now, we may be familiar with the tune "Hold On" because of choral arrangements that we may have heard or have sung, but be assured that when it was first composed, the people who were singing were not singing in four-part harmony. They were not singing in operatic styles, but they were singing out of their experience, out of their anguish, out of their passion. Keep your hand on the plow, hold on. If you want to get to heaven, I'll tell you how. Keep your hand on the gospel plow. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. If that plow stays in your hand, it'll lead you straight to the promised land. Keep your hand on the plow and hold on. Hold on, keep your hand on the plow. Hold on. With the pentatonic and other scales that came across from Africa to these shores, and the musical chants that our ancestors would have been familiar with, this was a part of the characteristics of black music. Another characteristic of black music from the antebellum period that we see evidenced in the music of spirituals, in the music of the songs of the of black freedom movements, and even today in the 21st century, is call and response. And so Hold On would have been one of those call and response songs. Hold on, and the community would respond, hold on, hold on, hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on. Call and response is a very crucial, very essential element in black music because it gives the community an opportunity to respond to the leader, to be part of the communal nature of the music. So Hold On was given new lyrics, and that's also a key characteristic of some black music. It is very extemporaneous in a lot of instances, and different verses would have been added in the moment as people were marching, as people were protesting, as people were fighting for their rights. And so then the verse would become, well, the one thing we got right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on the prize, hold on. And so other verses would have been composed right in the moment, and the call and response would have stayed, hold on, hold on, hold on, keep your hand on the plow, hold on.
In this drawing, the quote, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice," has a figure with his arms extended, open wide, as if trying to encompass the length of the arc. Well, it's hard for any of us to fully encompass the length of the arc. One person begins and another person adds on, and eventually there's a resolution. And we may not be able to see it, but we work in hope, and it is a work of its coming.
And so as the leaders of the civil rights movements, including certainly a very young Martin King, who was voted the leader of the Montgomery Improvement Association, as he and other leaders would have been planning, would have been strategizing, and making their efforts to dismantle a system of racial apartheid right here in this country, they would have sung songs like, ain't gonna let nobody turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me round. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. And somebody would have sung out, ain't gonna let segregation, and the congregation would respond, turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let segregation turn me round. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. And so as they would have been in those moments, the person who would be calling out the next line, the church might call a cantor or a precentor, the song leader would call out the next line. Ain't gonna let Bull Connor turn me round, turn me round, turn me round. Ain't gonna let Lester Maddox turn me round. Gonna keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land. And as you can hear, many of these songs that would have been co-opted sound as though they are written in minor keys, but there is a very fine line between the minor and the major key, which is also part and parcel of black music, that kind of bluesy sound, that kind of bluesy tone that existed both in and out of the church. And so blues songs like I got the St. Louis blues, blue as I can be. I got the St. Louis blues, blue as I can be. I got the St. Louis blues, blue would hear the flatted sevenths and thirds, and those tones would have migrated into the music of the church, because for black people, that would have been a sign that there is no separation between sacred and secular. And so songs like, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Won't let segregation blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, won't let segregation blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let segregation blow it out. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." People who were part of these marches and efforts would have been singing these songs, would have recognized these tunes, these scales, and would have understood that it was not a co-opting of church music, but that there is no separation of sacred and secular. And so music is music just as life is life. For that's an African cosmology, an African construct, that all of life is sacred, because wherever we are, God is, and God is with us wherever we are. And so the same ways that we might sing, "Don't nobody love me but my mama, and she could be jiving too," is the same way we take those chords and sing, "How I got over, how I made it over, you know my soul, look back and wonder how I got over. Well, as soon as my feet strike Zion, I'm gonna lay down my heavy burden. I'm gonna put on my robe and glory. I'm gonna shout one day and tell my story, how I come over hills and mountains, on up to the crystal fountain. Well, all of the sons and daughters will be drinking of the healing water. You know I gotta thank God, thank Him for being so good to me." And so these same chords, these same blues notes, blues chords would have been present in songs like "Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water." Speaking of Mahalia Jackson, she was indeed one of the premier voices for the freedom songs. She sang songs like "There's No Color Line in Heaven." We generally know her for songs like "How I Got Over" and "One of These Mornings." But she also did what would have been called then race songs or race music. So songs like "There's No Color Line in Heaven" and "I Want to Live the Life I Sing About in My Songs." And those would have been songs that spoke immediately to the movement, to everything that was going on. And I remind people that the fight for freedom is not over. We are yet in the fight. And so songs that had that kind of language of fighting, of being soldiers, of being in God's army, they were also very much part of the movement.
In this drawing of the phrase, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice," I've included two hands open and a feeling of wings. I want it to give it more of the sense of the internalization of that. It's something that we do, and we can only do it together to make it a reality, but it should be a reality in our hearts as well.
We are soldiers in the army. We have to fight, although we have to cry. We have to hold up the bloodstained banner. We have to hold it up until we die. My mother, she was a soldier. Oh yes, is the response. Had a hand on the gospel plow. Oh yes, one day she got tired. She couldn't fight anymore. She said, I'll stand here and fight anyhow. We are soldiers in the army. We have to fight, although we have to cry. We have to hold up the bloodstained banner. We have to hold it up until we die. So these were songs that would speak to our agency, not waiting on God to do everything for us, although certainly going forth in the power and the might and the spirit and the righteousness and the justice of God. And also saying that God has given us the opportunity, the agency to speak for ourselves, to march, to protest, to work for ourselves, to press people in power by speaking truth to power, to enact laws that bring about the freedom that we know we are entitled to. Another song that would have been part and parcel of the movement that was also part of the gospel tradition is we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. Now, of course, most of us know that that song was composed as I shall not be moved. But of course, this is the extemporaneous call and response communal nature of Black music. And so I shall not be moved, like I shall overcome someday, becomes we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the water. We shall not be moved. And so we see that these freedom movements always have a communal nature. And so the music of the movements also must have a communal nature. One song that was composed as a spiritual that uses personal language but was always sung and meant communally and was became one of the freedom songs was Guide my feet, Lord, while I run this race, 'cause I don't want to run this race in vain. Guide my feet, Lord. But my feet means our feet. And so like the extemporaneous communal nature, someone else would call out, hold my hand, Lord, while I run this race. Hold my hand, Lord, while I run this race. Oh, hold my hand, Lord, while I run this race. For I don't want to run this race in vain. And then someone else would call out, I'm your child, Lord, while I run this race. Oh, I'm your child, Lord, while I run this race. Oh, I'm your child, Lord, while I
In this last drawing based on the phrase, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice, I have two hands in a very horizontal position, kind of moving, as it were, through the universe. We see hands, the stars coming out from between the fingers, trying to grasp it, and an indication of a musical staff. In the realm of music, we know that music is built on harmony as well as discord, and all these things work together to create a kind of tension. And justice is always pursued in tension.
As we once again prepare to celebrate the birth of one of the world's greatest freedom fighters, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., I will sing a verse of what was his favorite song, Precious Lord. And Precious Lord was written by Dr. Thomas A. Dorsey, who had been a blues man, a blues player. He had been the accompanist for Ma Rainey, one of the first and most successful female blues singers. He was saved one night at a revival and began to bring his form of blues playing into the church, as it were, with what would become termed, or what we would come to know as gospel music. There were composers like the Reverend Charles A. Tindley and Lucy Campbell, who had been writing gospel hymns that had originated out of this style had originated out of the Great Awakenings of the 18th and 19th centuries. And musically, these periods were times of much religious fervor. And so Reverend Tindley, who wrote hymns such as Beams of Heaven, As I Go, Stand By Me, Leave It There, We'll Understand It Better By and By, and who is actually the composer of I Shall Overcome Someday, that became one of the anthems of the freedom movements. And Dorsey heard these gospel hymns and took that style that he had of blues playing and blues singing and linked them to sacred lyrics. So he wrote songs like If You See My Mother, telling the story of someone who is on their way to heaven. If you see my mother, tell her that you saw me. Tell her I was on my way. You may meet some friend who may ask about me. Tell them I am coming home someday. And Precious Lord was written out of Dr. Dorsey's own personal grief and anguish after his beloved wife died in childbirth, and then the child who was born died a few days later. And out of his immediate grief and pain, he began to sing and compose Precious Lord. He tells the story in the movie Say Amen Somebody that he said Lord, and somebody said, no, that's not his name, call him Precious Lord. And he says yes, and he began then to compose Precious Lord. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead that this song was so dear and meaningful to Dr. King was because he always had a sense of his own transition. He knew that his own life was constantly in danger, constantly being threatened. He was always at the risk of being killed. And that song provided him comfort and reminded him that no matter what happened, the Lord would indeed be with him. And so, as we herald Dr. King, as we celebrate his life and work, as we continue to do the work that he and many others of the civil rights movement and our ancestors began when they came to these shores, this fight for full freedom, let us remember to stay on the side of justice and righteousness, God's justice and righteousness, not our own personal sense of it, but God's meaning of it, which is encapsulated in the gospel of Jesus Christ, to preach good news to the poor, to let the oppressed go free, to give the blind back their sight, to set free the captive and proclaim the year of God's favor. Remember that when we do that, we are doing God's work. And Dr. King said, we are not wrong in what we're doing. When my way grows drear, precious